everybody. I am Mansa, the moderator for today's debate, and I welcome all of you to Hyderabad debating community. So it's good to see such lovely audience on a Sunday afternoon. So let's get started with the debate today. The motion for today's debate is death penalty should be abolished. So we already asked our judges to share their opinion and cast their vote before the debate. And we have flipped a coin to decide the order, the teams, and everything in the briefing before. So team A is going to be team proposition and team B is going to be team opposition. So let's see who are the candidates or participants in team A, which is the proposition. So team proposition has Akshita, Arjun, and Ashok. Team opposition has Apurva, Ravi, and Rajshekhar. So let's talk about the different rounds in the debate today. The first round is introduction, where both the teams will present their point of view and their side. They start presenting facts about their stance. They do not talk anything about what the other team spoke. The second round is the interjection. Here is where all of the team members will present their refutal statements. They do some research and they present facts to counteract the opposition team or the other team. Finally, the third round is the concluding round where each team will get a chance to sum up their entire stance in 3 minutes. So let's talk about the timings for all of these rounds. In first round, we have two speakers who are going to present their introductions for 3.5 minutes each. First, we are going to go ahead with the introduction of proposition speaker 1. Then we are going to go ahead with the introduction from opposition speaker 1. Then we'll switch back to introduction of proposition speaker 2, then introduction of opposition speaker 2. Then we are going to have a quick 5-minute strategic break, post which we are going to begin interjection round, where each speaker gets 3 minutes to speak. Proposition speaker 1 is going to present his or her interjection statements, followed by opposition speaker 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, and so on. Once the interjection round is done, we will have a 3-minute strategic break where both of the teams will prepare their concluding statements. One person from each team is allowed to present their concluding statements for 3 minutes each. So once conclusion is also done, we will go ahead with question and answer segment. Please note that each team gets only 2 questions. Anybody in the audience can ask the questions. Even the judges can ask the questions. So once the 4 questions are done, we move on to post-debate polling, where the swing in vote will let us know who wins the debate. And that concludes our debate. So let's get started.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we have gathered here to talk and exchange perspectives on the most controversial issue of today's world. Not just the state or the country, but the world. That is the death penalty. Should the death penalty be abolished or not? Are you still in some kind of doubt or in confusion to draw a conclusion to this statement? Oh, don't worry, you're not alone. So is the world. I am Akshita Thakur and I am along with my team here to propose the statement that death penalty should be abolished. The death penalty, also known as the capital punishment, is the harshest form of punishment available under any criminal law in existence anywhere in the world. This is the legal method through which the state exercises its power to take an individual's life. Death penalty is listed in the Indian Constitution, in which it is also stated that no individual shall be deprived of his life or personal liberty. Article 21 of the Indian Constitution, which guarantees every citizen the fundamental right to life, also has in it that the form of taking life, that is death penalty. Isn't that weird? I know. In my point of view, death penalty doesn't serve the purpose at all. It is merely an eye for an eye. We take a life because he took a life. Do you remember the words said by our very own Mahatma Gandhi? That an eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind. Don't you think that's exactly what we are trying to prove with this death penalty? Having brought Gandhi to the discussion, he himself was against the death penalty, and so was APJ Abdul Kalam. They did not support death penalty because that was a wrong form of punishment, which is irreversible. I agree that it is important for the criminals to get punished and the convicts of the most heinous crimes to get punished. But there is a line. I agree that drug trafficking, human trafficking, terrorism, waging wars, many such things, many more of these crimes are heinous to the world. But are you trying to say that hanging an individual is going to put an end to all of this? Do you think merely giving one person, taking one person's life is going to end all the crimes across the world? Is that what you're proving? Give it a thought. Thank you. Over to the moderator.
Good evening, people. Before getting down to the real theme, I would take you down to the decade back to 2012, Delhi gang rape case and murder case. Involved a rape and fatal assault that occurred on 16 December 2012. The incident took place when Jyoti Singh, a 22-year physiotherapy intern, was beaten, gang raped, tortured in a private bus in which she was traveling with her male friend. There were six others on the bus, including the bus driver, all of whom raped the woman and beat her friend. The men dragged Jyoti to the near of the bus, beating her with the rod and raping her while the bus driver continued to drive. A medical report later said that she suffered serious injuries to her abdomen, intestines, genitals due to the assault. And doctors said that the damage indicated that a blunt object suspected to be an iron rod may have been used for the penetration. On 7th January 2020, a death warrant was issued for the Nirbhaya rapist by Delhi court, setting an execution date of 22nd January in Tihar jail. Jyoti Singh is the eldest of the three children and the only daughter in a family. While parents belonged to a small village, they sold their ancestral land to educate her, worked double shifts to pay for her schooling. After the conviction, Asha Devi, the victim's mother, stated, "Finally, the convicts have been hanged. The struggle was for 8 years. It was delayed, but we got justice. Today, Nirbhaya got justice and the girls of the country got justice. I want to thank everyone, the judiciary, the government, every citizen for this." Imagine if our country never had capital punishment as an option. What kind of justice would have been compensated for such an act? And how would the parents of Nirbhaya be able to breathe the same air, knowing the fact those sick men are still alive and breathing in the same air as them? Nevertheless, when asked, should the death penalty be abolished, I say no. Capital punishment is an extreme sanction that is properly reserved to the worst and the worst. Society has always used punishment to discourage would-be criminals for unlawful action in the society. Since society has the highest interest in preventing the murders, it should use the strongest punishment available to deter the murder, and that is death penalty. If murders are sentenced to death and executed to the death penalty, when used in conjunction with rehabilitation, the other methods of dealing with the criminals can be effective and can also bring peace to the victims' families. The death penalty holds an important role in the criminal justice system. There are many things in society that should be banned, but the death penalty is not one of them. Over to you, moderator.
I would first like to start by saying the famous quote by Mahatma Gandhi, like an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. So this is an appropriate one in this occasion to illustrate that serving death to a person for causing grievous crimes and sometimes not so much makes us no better than the bad guys ourselves. The death penalty is the ultimate cruel, inhuman, and degrading punishment. It is a symptom of culture of violence and not a solution to it. So the historical application of capital punishment shows that any attempt to single out certain crimes deserving of death will inevitably be arbitrary and discriminatory. And I would like to put forward some of the points to and reasons to abolish the capital punishment. So the biggest downside of the capital punishment is its irrevocable and irreversible nature. So sometimes the risk of executing an innocent person can never be eliminated. Since 1973, for example, more than 184 prisoners sent to death row in USA were later released from their death row on the grounds of innocence. Others have been executed despite serious doubts about their guilt. Another point is like more than 30 countries have made the possession and importation for sale of certain illegal drugs as a ground for capital punishment. Countries like Iran, Singapore, Philippines, and Malaysia has mandatory death sentence for possession of relatively small amounts of illegal drugs. So just for being just for possessing relatively small amounts of drugs uh, is being a reason in this 21st century for taking someone's life legally. So that seems unfair to me and to a lot of people supporting the cause of morality and humanity and supporting also the cause of the right to life. Also, there is no evidence that the death penalty is any more effective in reducing the crime rates than life imprisonment, as stated and claimed by the countries which supports death penalty or capital punishment as a deterrent for preventing and avoiding criminal offenses and some other cases of treachery and treason and military crimes. Also, in many cases, people were executed after being convicted in grossly unfair trials on the basis of torture tainted evidences and those who have inadequate legal representations, as recorded by Amnesty International. Also, it can also be used as a political tool. Some authorities in authoritarian countries use it as
So, firstly, it was nice connecting to you all, and this is an interesting topic which helped me to research on this front, and I happen to touch on many factors. So, out of which I would like to bring on table that we have different flavors in our life. So we have happiness, sadness, and we also see different situations that we need to face at our life, and that's when we see a lot of challenges coming in. So don't you think when a country like India had bought this particular IPC section, and that too are covering under 11 particular sections broadly, covering all these factors that will lead to death punishment or death penalty, which is leading to almost they have done a lot of groundwork on that, and this is not given to every single crime. It is given to the rarest of the situations, which is very cruel and something which you need to address it, at least to the level where you need to save the nation. So on this front, I would say I would like to bring a lot of numbers and lot of trends that will help us to analyze what went right, what went wrong, how are we progressing in India, and what are the countries who have abolished and what are the countries who strongly believe that this should strongly be there. So on that front, I would like to say you that there are 54 countries which still remain that they want to continue with capital punishment, out of which we have 184 countries which completely abolished this particular death penalty. So this is an interesting one. But although I would like all of you to think on this particular front. Why do you think that a country like India, where we have, and it is a hub. If you see from a knowledge standpoint, India is the place where you see a lot of people coming at different verticals, and it's a knowledge hub again. So, but still, they feel that this should strongly be there. Don't you think we have some strong foundation behind it? So please think of it and what can be the reason. And I would also link you to the mythology, and there is a smart connect which will help and which will strongly prove that we may have to stick with this particular penalty to continue. And just to tell you, as on 2021, we have around 488 prisoners who are on death penalty, and in 2020 we have 404. So there is a good number of increase, and I think abolishing will even more increase the problem than of fixing it. So we'll have to be a little wise, and we'll have to think from all different factors and grounds to make sure that before we abolishing something, we'll have to see that we should not disturb the basic ground first, and then we'll have to debate to the next level to removing or not to removing. So with this ground, I will close this and over to the moderator.
Thank you, Mansa. So let me just dig in straight into the details or facts of what happened after the Delhi gang rape case, which was a very unfortunate thing to happen. That incident took place in December of 2012, and the death sentence was given on 13 September 2013 by the judges. You know, the number of rape cases which were registered in that year, there were 33,700 cases. This is of 2013 when the decision of death was given. Following, after 4 more years, 2013, 14, 15, and 16, the number of rape cases went on increasing, and it peaked at 39,000 rape cases reported in 2016 alone. But it was argued that giving the death sentence actually helped the case. I don't think so. It didn't. It actually did the opposite. I think it gave ideas to those people. So it is a reverse trend. There is no clear indication that giving a death sentence is actually helping our case. Secondly, if you have seen the videos of those people, of those rapists, they have said things like it is the fault of the girl that she is roaming outside late at night. No, it's not. You see what's the problem here? The problem is their thinking. By just killing them, what are we going to achieve? They will die, but that idea, that kind of thinking is still alive in the heads of hundreds of thousands of people in our country still. Rather than doing that, we should focus more on spreading awareness and education. I have completed my education in school and college, but I was not taught anything about sex education. I was not taught about consent in school. My parents taught me that. Imagine people who have not been taught that at home, who are living in that environment. So it is our responsibility to impart knowledge, which is the only counter to such social evils. So spreading information about masturbation, sex, consent, and these things will only help us. If you just personally ask me, I actually wanted to kill those people. Honestly, if I had a gun in my hand, I was so angry at that case. But just imagine how many people can I kill? how many people? It can only be changed with an idea. An idea can change your life. Thank you.
All right. So I'd like to, I've written down some notes and like to mention some points mentioned by Speaker Akshita. She quoted Article 21 of Indian Constitution, which says, no person shall be deprived of his or her life or personal liberty, which is fair. But there is an exception to that article. The whole sentence reads, no person shall be deprived of his or her life or personal liberty, except according to the procedure established by law. So law supersedes this particular article. And let us suppose that there was, let us move on. And I'd also like to point out that there's also another section in the Indian Constitution, section 19, which talks about freedom, right to freedom. It particularly states that Indian Constitution entitles every citizen to move freely throughout the territory of the country. And yet we imprison people because they commit crimes. So how is that not unconstitutional? Like, by that logic, shouldn't Article 19 also be unconstitutional? Like, shouldn't this also be refuted? But as I understand from Speaker Arjun, that the life imprisonment is fine, like it's acceptable form of punishment. Moving on, Akshita also mentioned that will hanging, she asked a question, will hanging end the crimes? And she also said that it is a form of revenge and not a punishment. So to that, I'd like to give a perspective on why this punishment is given. As you all know, capital punishment is given in the rarest of the rare cases. And when a person is given a capital punishment, it is not just for the crimes that they committed in the past. It is also for the crimes that they might commit in the future, right? What if the judge thought that the person was not suitable to live in a society, like they cannot operate in a society, they're too dangerous to be left in a society, right? Moving on, Arjun also mentioned that there's no evidence that capital punishment works. I'd like to argue that there is no evidence that abolishment of capital punishment works either. This is also raised by Ashok. He mentioned some stats. In 2013, the reported cases were 33,000 of rape. In 2016, it was 39,000. Arjun, you are talking about the reported cases. You are making an assumption that all rapes have been reported, which is false. It is a good sign that the number of cases reported are increasing. So with that, I hand it back to the moderator.
Hello, everybody, once again. To start off with the question that all of you yet have in your mind, that why abolish death penalty? I feel we should hold the state to the same moral standards as us. Think about it in this way, okay? If a private citizen executed a murderer, if he executed a murderer, he would still be a murderer all the same, right? Then why should we view it any different when the government does the same, right? So I agree to you, Rajshekhar, the opponent speaker, that all of the points that you have quoted might be right, but I still have this question to you, that do you propose your non-abolishment of death penalty to be the deterrent to stop all the crimes? I still get no answer from this. One second, revisiting the question that I've asked you, that does hanging stop the crimes? My answer for this would be no, hanging terrorists won't stem the terror. What actually stems the terror is the determined efforts of the government in investigating where does it actually come from and why, right? However, death penalty there's also risk in putting innocent to the death, and this mistake cannot be undone. This is not reversible. As we believe in India and many other parts of the world, that 99 offenders may go scot-free, but not one innocent should go up the gallows. One of the opponent speaker, Ravi, has rightly said that 142 countries have already abolished death penalty and 56 are still following it. Isn't that an answer to itself? 142 countries of the world have abolished and they are developed. They have good facilities. And we, India, following the death penalty, I wouldn't say this is the sole reason, but why do we still stand in the line of the developing countries? I would like to ask all the opponents that do you propose the death penalty as an effective deterrent? Do you have enough of these evidences? And I feel that there are alternatives that can be done. Why don't we think of reformation, rehabilitation? These can act as a prevention and deterrent. A criminal opportunity, a criminal should have the opportunity for rehabilitation. I feel this is more important than the death penalty. Over to you, the moderator.
So answering to the question, I do agree that I also want to kill the rapist and the criminals that for the crime they committed. So what do you expect from the family of that victim to feel when the person is breathing the same air as them? What do you expect them to feel when they see that the rapist of their daughter are still alive? What do you expect from the family? What kind of punishment what kind of punishment they deserved to see their daughter's criminal in front of their eyes? I've always been on the fence about the death penalty, as there are so many cases when you cannot be entirely sure. There are no witnesses, but there are incidents, there are cases where there are bus full of evidences and there are room full of evidences that these people have committed the crime. And for some reason, we have decided that human lives are worth more than when a human is sick, twisted, wrapped shadow of one. Why? Why is a man who snapped and was mentally ill and did not know what he was doing worth more than a dog who didn't know what he was doing? In 2012, when this crime was created, when this crime was done, there were so many protests across the countries demanding the death of these criminals. What do you expect from those people? To forget whatever happened? So when we talk about justice to the humans, when we talk about these people, deterrent to the crimes they have done, so cannot we consider one point that this brings peace to the family of the victim? And also you find death penalty as inhuman when rotting in the jail is same, where the these criminals are raped, sometimes where they are ill treated, where there are people who are innocent rotting. Thank you. Over to your moderator.
So, as Rajshekar said, there are no evidence that capital punishment has increased the rape. So, I feel a law should only be enacted and enforced if there are benefits of doing the same. So, if the capital punishment cannot cause a reduction in the crime and cannot also statistically say that it is effective and ineffective, it should not be enacted. It should only be enacted and enforced only the capital punishment cause a result in reducing the crimes. Also, Rajashekar mentioned some reports of cases. I don't remember getting into the details or statistics of how many cases were occurring per year or a year-on-year basis. And also onto the point of Apurva. So if the families of the victim are looking at the accused, now we have to make a distinction between whether they want justice or are they bloodlusty. If they want justice, life sentence would do fine. and would result in them not harming any other persons in the society. But if they are deliberately wanting them to get killed or executed, so that is bloodlust, I would say, and not human in nature. So that makes them no different from the ones that killed their own daughter in this case. And also coming to Rajashekhar's again point, it is the law. So there are laws in several backward countries also, which results in pelting stone or stoning the victim, or stoning a woman to death for obscenity. And also there are laws for beheading a person, be of any gender. So law is mainly propagated by the culture and the people that they are being living in that country. So with time to time, the law has changed, and the law has become more human over the time, because in uh, in and like in the medieval ages, there are cruel, much more cruel punishments that has been practiced as a way of punishing the accused. So that is one thing. And also regarding one more thing, there are cases where children's having not reaching the age of 18 have been convicted and executed. So they have been executed when they were child also. So that is also a law. And also racial prejudice can motivate predominantly white juries in capital cases to convict black and other non-white defendants in disproportionate numbers because of their less advantaged socioeconomic background.
So good to hear. I think I interestingly heard some interesting points, but I would still like to have my own, point of view. So I think someone said, and I completely agree, that human life itself is a great gift, and you can't get it now as and when you want. So it has to be dealt in a very beautiful way. So there are many positive things that can come out. Point one. And secondly, so I also heard from one of our opponent speaker, Akshita, was talking about, one of the speakers, they were talking about, some kind of education to be given, a kind of rehabilitation kind of. But I would like to say, you please visit one of the organizations in India, especially the Human Rights Commission. They strive so hard to ensure that every single individual who is the victim of this particular friend, they try to ensure, and they are putting their heart and mind to make sure that they are out of it. But still they are failing at first. And I think Akshita was talking about some facilities to bring. I don't understand what kind of facilities. So we are basically doing everything, all the groundwork that we have to, but still we are ending up with this. And second, and lastly, I think Ashok was talking about, I think the last speaker was talking about there are no statistics. I would like to bring to you a particular case, Aruna Shanbag, who got affected with this brutally sexual assault, and she got suffered for almost 42 years, and she was in vegetative state, and she was killed by the doctors looking into the kind of suffering that they have. I would tell country like India, the situation that we are at, we could not able to take a strong decision at times, even to cancel some licenses if required. So if you take the same example in Australia, the legislation is so strong that they would cancel the license for 13 years, which the Indian government can't do it. So if you revisit the case of Aruna Shanbag, the person who actually affected this lady, his job was still there. He suffered for 7 years without job, but still he is having the job, and he is happily living with his family in village, and he got married again. But this lady who was a victim, she suffered for 42 years as in a vegetative state, and then finally she died. So I don't think you can abolish death punishment unless and until you have strong uh, policies in place. Because if you look into other countries like Singapore and all, people don't dare to. But if here for everything we have some exceptions, I think you cannot omit death punishment, and this should be there. And this is also needed
Thank you, Mansa, and thank you to all the people that those who have given such nice points. But I still believe that I'm still hanging on to my own belief that handing over the death punishment is not a solution. Let me go back to the Nirbhaya case itself. Like there are proper uh, statistics that show that handing over the death punishment is not a deterrent factor, and not only in rape cases. You can see that in murder cases and sexual assault cases as well. It's over there on the internet. You can check it out. Secondly, we must focus more on the education, and I'd like to stress it even more. One of the debaters said, like, we have various institutions in India, those who focus on the on changing the convicts. But what I'm talking about is imparting the education from the beginning, from the childhood itself. There should be a subject called consent uh, in our studies. That is how we will change the way of thinking of the people. Ultimately, this is what will help us. If you go to any therapist or you go to any religious guru also, for any problem whatsoever, what they will say is think positively. When you think positively, your actions will change. And we as a society need to think in that direction. Apart from that, we have seen in history that judges can be biased, right? Uh, there are all white judges in a court if, say sentencing the convict to a black guy in case of America. And when we also, as a country, when we were ruled by Britishers, there were many atrocities that were carried out against us, right? So this is uh, also, it can be used as a political tool. Let us go to China for a moment, and from there we can go to North Korea as well. There are hundreds of thousands of people killed every year just because they do not agree to some of their religious or their party's views. We cannot let something like that happen to our country, and having death penalty at this stage can pave a way for doing something like that. And lastly, uh, it's not easy to kill someone. I think I come from an army background, and I've seen my friends say killing a first person is not easy. Just imagine the victim's family who had supported the death of the accused. Uh, how will they live rest of their lives if that thing kicks in that maybe I did something wrong, which cannot be reversed forever? Just think about that. Thank you.
So folks, when a high court judge announces the death penalty, they declare that the criminal be hanged. They don't request, they don't make a statement, they declare some strong words. I mean, what kind of a moral compass does one need to have in order to declare that another person does not deserve their right of life? Which is a valid question. Like I wish more people ask such questions. And when we look at the crimes committed by these criminals, by these convicted, we see a common factor. Let us take back, let's look at the Nirbhaya rape case, since that is being talked about a lot. The criminals were charged for rape, murder, unnatural offenses, and destruction of evidences. So rape alone does not constitute death penalty. Murder alone does not warrant a death penalty. But there's something called unnatural offenses. The events that we discussed today were unnatural. It's the The convicts went above and beyond their way to hurt the victim. That is what constitutes death penalty. When you are a high court judge, you are also responsible for the future actions of the convict. There are always chances of the convict walking out even after receiving a life imprisonment. In fact, 3% of all the inmates in the US escape at some point of the time behind the bars. 468 prisoners escaped in India in 2019 alone. So there are cases where prisoners escape, be it because of this or any other reason. It is a possibility. The notion of death penalty is not to take revenge. Like this is the point that we've been emphasizing on. It is to protect the society from the convict. That is why the judge orders. Yes, in law, the public opinion does not align with the judgment always. And as Ashok mentioned, the judgment is biased. Like judges are biased. In fact, everyone's judgment is biased to their own situations, like their own experiences. But there are some situations where everyone collectively will say that this is wrong. This should not have happened. There should be consequences for these actions. That is why the judge orders. There's something in law called setting a landmark judgment. Okay, the question that we want to ask is there an upper line for cruelty? There is not. That is why it's important to set a landmark judgment to stop this. Think about it. And I rest my case. Thank you.
Now all of you get to express your thoughts, but not necessarily. You have a lot of thoughts. I had a lot of thoughts and questions while the debaters were speaking. Well, now is the time to ask all of your questions to the debaters. We have time for 4 questions, 2 to the proposition team and 2 to the opposition team. Yes, Ajit sir. To which team would you like to pose the question?
My question is going to be the team that is opposing the death penalty. Yeah, my question is, we all know that UP has a zero tolerance policy towards Bahubalis, as we call them, who have grown stronger under the previous regimes. That fear of death due to this zero tolerance policy has actually given results. A lot of them actually came out and surrendered in the first few days because they saw other criminals being shot to death. Okay, so don't you think this proves that the fear of death is the largest fear and it can actually cause a difference? Please answer.
Who would like to answer this question from the opposition team?
Hi, Mansa. I would like to put forward my
Please go
point.
ahead. Please go
So, shooting accused to death can be and is labeled as an encounter, which the Hyderabad rape case we all witnessed, but that does not align with the capital or death punishment. So if we take into account the fear of death, so there may be instances that the crimes that has been committed by the accused may not fall under the capital or death punishment, to be precise. So to forcefully kill someone in the name of protecting the society by aligning with encounter is unlawful and unjustified.
Thank you, Arjun. Niharika, to which team would you like to pose a question?
Yeah, so my question is for the opposition. So how do you justify that no person is born a criminal, right? They were brought up, or the situation or the circumstances they have gone through, or the situations they have been through, so that make them a criminal. Or in the other case, if they have been in a good environment or something like that, they would have been some such great personalities. So in the opposite case, they have become a criminals or the murderers or something like that. So and also we came from a civilization where we deprived fire from the rock. So just think about it.
Right. So Niharika, you rightfully mentioned that nobody's born a criminal, and everyone reacts depending on the circumstances they grew up in. But this is not the only factor that one needs to consider before giving out judgments. Okay, so while you put out a valid fact, there's also another angle where the victims were affected, the family of the victim is affected, and that is irreversible as well. There is also another angle of setting a precedence, right? What kind of like precedents do we want to set? Like, do we encourage like, do we just leave criminals who committed such heinous crimes, or like, do we punish them and set an example that such things are not tolerated? And there are various factors that go into like making this decision, and I'm sure that you and I cannot justify all the factors correctly, but at the end of the day, it's the factors are being taken into consideration. And yeah, I strongly believe that depending on the factors, the decision taken, the decision of death penalty is right.
Apurva, or to which team would you like to pose the question?
Yeah, Mansa. Hello, this question is for proposition team. You spoke about cases such as rape cases and murder cases, but like we have terrorism as well, right? I mean, like we have seen Mumbai attacks in 2006, and those terrorists created such a havoc. So, what is your take in that? Like, should they not be hanged? Should the death penalty be abolished for such cases as well of terrorism?
So yes, you have pointed out the correct thing. There are many heinous crimes like terrorism, and there were Mumbai serial blasts in '93, which killed 250 people, and the accused Yaqub Menon was actually hanged. And also Ajmal Kasab, who was a lone survivor of the Mumbai 26/11 attacks, was also hanged. My question is, uh, Yaqub Menon was an Indian, right? But he still took such decisions, and he went ahead and did something like that against his own countrymen. What might he be thinking? Let us go back to his childhood or their childhood. There are people raised in such environments, uh, those who are radicalized right from their youth. Even in the Kashmir Valley itself, small children pick up stones and they pelt it on the army people. They have been radicalized, and army over there is helping them like day and night. It has opened schools, colleges, a sports festival. It's doing everything, but still they are being radicalized by some people of bad thinking. So we have to actually hit the needle where uh, it's needed, right? Which is like we have to change the way of thinking. That is only a way we can bring about a change in the society.
Saisri, please let me know if your question is for team opposition.
Yeah, it is for.
Please go ahead.
So the proposition claimed that the criteria for the death penalty is quite arbitrary, and I don't. So I want to ask the opposition, according to your side of the debate, what warrants the death penalty? Like, how do we decide a crime is heinous enough to warrant a death penalty, and that the pain of the other victims whose crime wasn't so bad doesn't warrant it? So I would ask that.
Who would like to answer that question from the opposition?
Yeah, hello, this is Apurva. I will answer the question. So yeah, I started with my introduction with explaining a crime that was heinous enough to be sentenced as death penalty. And when you talk about acts such as rape, murder, mass murders, terrorism, vandalism, is not. So when you talk about death penalty is not a cruel punishment, and it is certainly not unusual. So when you talk about mass murders and rapists who are insane and cannot contribute positively to the society and threaten other people to be executed, so these kind of criminals should be eradicated and they cannot be put into the jails also. So these kind of criminals should be executed.
We are done with the Q&A segment. Let us now ask the judges to vote so we can see if there is a swing in their opinion. It is time for the moment that all of us have been waiting for. Let's see what the judges thought before the debate. So 57.1% voted against the motion and 42.9% voted for the motion. Drum rolls, please. After the debate, it's 71.4% against the motion and 28.6% for the motion. So team opposition wins. Congratulations, team opposition. I hope all of you had as much fun as I did today.
So far, I'm Vijay here. Just quickly going there. So far, it's good start for the debate. Each team comes and share their opening remarks. Sounds very professional and nice because I didn't see a fight as if it was the 9 p.m. news, each screaming out on top of each other's mics, right? As long as it's professional nice, it's so nice to hear their valid points that they bring to it. So let's listen to the rest of the interjection rounds and conclusion rounds. It's a good thing to start.
Hi, yeah, this is my first meeting that I'm attending here, and I'm a member of I was one of the founding members of my school's debate club. So it's interesting to see that the debating community in Hyderabad is growing. This topic, we have debated it a lot. I think everybody who's into debating has debated on it at some point. I find it very interesting. I'm looking forward to the rebuttals of the speakers because the kind of points that they made that, whether it's justice granted to the citizens or, that makes us all question that is justice really revenge or is there a different meaning to justice that we should have? And similarly, they talked about, the proposition team, I think, made some very relevant points to today's political structure, like, the fact that it's a political tool that, if you're living in an authoritarian country or if you're living in a country with a lot of political turmoil, do you want to give your government that much power to be able to execute something? So they've raised a lot of good points. I'm looking forward to the refuted statements.
Yeah, I heard good discussions are going on so far. Both the proposition and the opposition, they are telling what they felt, and also the opposition or the other team, they are raising out the points which they feel are not correct, or what they're giving the opinions which they felt also. So that was nice.